Howdy folks, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. So, what's been going on, and what do we have to look forward to? Well, actually, what I've been up to and what I'm getting up to are very, very closely related. I realise that doesn't make a huge amount of sense. Allow me to explain. So, World of Warships, Kings of the Sea tournament. The finals and semi-finals are being broadcast this month on the 26th and 27th of May, so that's the last weekend in May. Normally the matches have been presented and broadcast from the Wargaming Paris office, but this time around they're actually going to broadcast them from the St. Petersburg office. Now, the presentation team is more or less the same as it has been in the last couple of tournaments. You're going to have Isolate and Flamu doing the play-by-play during the matches, and then on the analyst's couch you're going to have Mr. Conway and Chrysantos from Wargaming, but this time around I'm going to be joining them. Yes, I'll be sitting on the couch trying to make it sound as if I actually understood what just happened during the battles. So naturally that means I'm going back to St. Petersburg at the end of this month, so hooray, because St. Petersburg is awesome. Unfortunately that means I also have to once again go through the whole process of applying for a Russian visa. Now, I don't know if you can remember the song and dance routine that I had to go through in order to just get the documents that were necessary for a British citizen to apply for a Russian visa last time, but just in case you have forgotten, allow me to refresh your memory. First, you have to apply in person for a Russian visa, because they take your fingerprints, and the nearest visa office to me is in London, and I hate travelling through London at the best of times. So that's a 2-hour journey away before I even get to the visa office, and before I even embark on the journey there's a whole bunch of documentation that is required. Anybody applying for a Russian visa, the first page of your visa application paperwork is going to be the same for everybody. Passport information, passport number, who issued it, when they issued it, when it expires, etc, etc, etc. But I'm a British citizen, and I was in the military, so they require a little bit more than my passport information. Also, I'm self-employed, so yeah. When I'd finished printing out all of the information that the Russian embassy required to even look at my visa application, it ended up looking like the Hong Kong phone book. They wanted to know what flight I was arriving on, when it was arriving, what flight I was departing on, how long I was staying for, which hotels I was staying at, names, addresses and telephone numbers of any hotels I was staying at, how I was intending to pay for the hotels that I was staying at, how much money was I intending to spend over the course of my visit, what was I planning on spending that money on. And while we're on the subject of money, what do you do for a living, Mr. Jingles? Oh, you're self-employed, right. Print out your last 3 months of bank statements, and you better be financially solvent or you can forget coming to Russia. What exactly did you do before you were self-employed? Were you in the military by any chance? Oh, you were, right, okay. Get ready to print out another 3 or 4 pages listing exactly what you did in the military, what branch of service it was, how long you served, any military conflicts you may have been involved in. Yeah, that one went on for a bit. And we're barely getting started. Once they'd gone through all of that, they wanted to know the details of every country I visited in the last 10 years. You know I was in the Navy, right? I mean, I've been to a lot of places. Luckily it's the last 10 years and I actually retired in 2011. And my last 3 years in service were all spent at the Admiralty Interview Board in Portsmouth, so I didn't do a huge amount of travelling in my last 3 years of service. But since leaving the Navy, I think I've been to 3 or 4 games cons, a bunch of comic conventions in Germany. I've been to Paris, I've been to America 5 times. I've done a fair old amount of travelling. Luckily I was able to cheat a little bit, because aside from the USA, pretty much everywhere I've ever been to in the last 10 years was in the EU. And you don't get your passport stamped if you're a British passport holder and you're travelling in the EU. You still have to take your passport with you, but they don't stamp it. So I only listed what they could prove I'd actually done in the last 10 years, which was basically the USA. But yeah, it still took a fair old while to fill out all of the details of where have you been in the last 10 years. And then, of course, Russia last month as well. So the list keeps getting longer every time I apply for one of these Russian visas. By the time I'd finished printing out and completing all of the documentation that they wanted, this visa application was running to 15 pages. Only it got worse, because I'm not going to St. Petersburg alone this time. Rita's coming along with me, so I was not looking forward to doing Rita's visa application, but I needn't have worried, because while they want you to print out the Hong Kong phone book if you're an ex-military British passport holder applying for a Russian visa, if you're Portuguese, they don't really care. I mean, seriously. Remember, the first page of everybody's visa application, if you're going to Russia, is the same. It's your passport details. And do you have any relatives in Russia? Rita's visa application was 1.5 pages. They really just didn't seem to give a shit. Where are you from? Portugal? Fine. So we thought, well, this is going to be easy. I mean, seriously, the only thing they wanted to know is, what do you do? So we didn't want to go through the whole print out the previous 3 months' bank statements. And since Rita is actually studying for a history degree, we just said full-time education. She's a student. They didn't want to know what hotel she was staying. It was just, stay wherever you like. They didn't want to know what flight she was arriving on, what flight she was leaving on. They didn't even want to know how long she was staying. It was just, stay however long you like. The only thing they wanted to know was, did she have insurance? And that was it. And provide the insurance details. So when we booked the plane ticket, we also took out medical insurance and travel insurance, and they provided a policy number and the name of the insurance company. So we added that and said, provide details of your insurance. So, there you go. And that was it. 1.5 pages. Easy. Or so we thought. We got to the passport office, the visa office, the VFS Global, or the agency that process visa applications on behalf of the Russian embassy. They're all Russians, but it's separate from the embassy itself. My 15-page visa application was done in 2 minutes. It was that easy. And then Rita's ticket came up, and she went to the counter, and we were there 2 hours. 2 hours getting them to accept Rita's 1.5-page visa application. It was unbelievable. You see, I made a classic error when I was filling in Rita's visa application form. I filled it incorrectly. I answered the questions that I was asked, and I gave the information that was asked for. And there were 2 problems with Rita's visa application. 1, place of work, and 2, insurance. Now, we declared that she was a student in full-time education because she is studying for a history degree. So when they asked, what's her place of work, we just put down none. She doesn't have one. She's a student. It turns out, what's your place of work also means if you don't work and you're in full-time education, provide the details of your place of education. Which doesn't sound at all like what's your place of work, but that is apparently what that particular question meant. The second question, do you have insurance? If so, provide details. And we said, yep. Here's the name of the insurance company, and here's the policy number. What that question should have said was, do you have insurance? If so, print out the insurance policy and attach it to the visa application form. But silly me, I only did exactly what they asked for. So, yeah. Now, the first of those 2 problems, what's your place of work? What we mean to ask is, list the details of your place of education. That wasn't really a problem, but it did mean we had to go back to the back of the queue after jumping onto one of the computers that they had and getting the details of her place of education, because we didn't know the address and phone number of her university off the top of our heads. The insurance deals, on the other hand, proved to be slightly more complicated. You see, we just took the travel insurance that came with the plane ticket, and I received an email after booking the flight with the insurance details. And what it basically said was, this person is insured as per the attached PDF files. Here's your policy number. And the attached PDF files were completely generic. It was just a summary of what was covered and some legal mumbo jumbo. So we printed all of that out. Oh no, that's not good enough. None of these policy documents have her name on it. Well, yeah, but the email that the policy documents came with has her name on it and the policy number. No, they said. The policy document will have her name on it. Print that out. I said, look, you can see that it doesn't have her name on it. It's a generic, booked with the flight insurance policy. Well, that's just not good enough, they said. Well, that's what we've got. What do you expect us to do? What they expected us to do was go away, go back on the computer, and buy fresh travel insurance with a policy document that actually had her name on it. And then go to the back of the queue. Again, this is now the third time. And finally, they accepted her visa application. I should hasten to point out that they didn't at any point ask me for any travel insurance. You know, my 15-page Chinese phone book visa application, they don't care whether I live or die. But with Rita, oh no, we're not having the death or injury of any Portuguese citizens on our hands, but you Brits, yeah, who cares? So yeah, eventually we finally got them to accept Rita's 1.5-page visa application form. So that was all kinds of fun. Oh, and then of course we'd spent so long at the visa office that it was now after 4 p.m. and I'd bought off-peak rail tickets to get us to and from London, because there's no way this visa application process is going to take 3 hours, right? So on getting back to the train station, the next thing I had to do was upgrade my off-peak, non-rush hour train tickets to regular, any time of the day. Oh shit, it's the middle of rush hour and we're in London train tickets. Have you ever tried to travel through London on public transport during rush hour? I don't recommend it. So we just thought, screw it, there's absolutely no point in trying to rush. Why do they call it rush hour anyway? Because nobody gets anywhere quickly. So we stopped for a meal and then we eventually went home. 10 o'clock in the morning our journey began. 2 hours to get to London. An hour it should have taken to get these visa applications processed and handed in. Another 2 hours to get back. Say, add an extra hour for any unforeseen circumstances. This should have taken 6 hours maximum. We got home at 10 o'clock at night. It took 12 hours. Oh man, I love going places, I really do. Foreign travel is one of my favourite things. Well, that's not actually true. I love being in foreign places, soaking up the culture, trying the foreign food, seeing the sights, all that sort of thing. Fantastic, love it. But the actual travel process, the process of getting to where you're going and then getting home from where you've been afterwards, oh, just shoot me. I just know. Oh, why does it have to be so hard? It was so easy in the Navy. I mean, you get on board the ship, it sails. They keep you busy, working you ragged for 2 weeks, and then you wake up one morning and you're in Crete. It's fantastic. So you run off and explore Crete for a few days, and then you're back on board, the ship sails. Anything up to a week later, suddenly you're in Marrakesh. Fantastic. And even when you're not anywhere foreign, windswept and interesting, even when you're just cruising around the ocean. I mean, you're cruising around the ocean. Finish work for the day, go and sit on the quarterdeck, watch sunset, have a cigarette, have a chat with the other guys on the quarterdeck, watch the stars come up, watch the dolphins playing in the wake of the ship. And they pay you to do this. See, if I want to go anywhere now, I have to hand over large sums of money and go through the ball ache of all the administration involved with that. But what I used to do for a living was travel around the world, go to all these foreign and exotic places, and they would pay me to do it. And not only that, they'd actually pay you more if you were going somewhere foreign. This was always one of the greatest mysteries of my time in the Navy. There was a thing called LOA. I can never remember if it was Living Overseas Allowance or Local Overseas Allowance. But the Seagoers version was called SLOA, Seagoers Living Overseas Allowance. And what it basically boiled down to was this. If your ship was due to go somewhere foreign, say Marrakesh for example, Marrakesh would have a rate of LOA, and it was split by rank. So junior rates would have their rate of LOA, senior rates, petty officers, chief petty officers would have a separate rate, and the officers in the wardroom would also have an officer's rate of LOA. And apparently the way it was calculated, and this is utterly bizarre, is that somebody at the British Embassy had the job of every week going out with a shopping list and buying a bunch of stuff. Now, it didn't matter what country the embassy was in, the shopping list was the same. The only difference was that there was one list for junior rates, one list for senior rates, and one list for officers. And I've no idea what was on these shopping lists. Not a clue. I mean, I imagine the junior rate shopping list was bubblegum and skateboards. Yeah. The senior rate shopping list was slippers and pipe tobacco. And the officers' shopping list was pink gin and corduroy trousers, whatever. Haven't got a clue what was actually on these shopping lists. But the person at each British embassy responsible for pricing up these various different lists would each week, or possibly each month, I don't know exactly how regularly they did it, would then send these prices back to the Ministry of Defence in the UK, and somebody in the Ministry of Defence would then look through all of these prices, sorted by nation, and then would calculate just how much more expensive the cost of living was for a British citizen in all of these different countries, and from that they would allocate a rate of LOA to be paid to junior rates, senior rates and officers when they were visiting these foreign countries. Yep, all sounds fairly logical and straightforward, except for just one tiny thing. Generally speaking, the British pound, sterling, is pretty strong. Also, generally speaking, most of the time, anytime we went somewhere foreign, their currency wasn't as strong as ours. So we were actually getting a very, very good exchange rate, and our money was going a lot further than it would have done if we'd been back in the UK. And yet, somehow, we always, without exception, regardless of where we were, ended up getting paid more for the privilege of being somewhere that wasn't in the UK. Now, I don't know how much pipe tobacco and skateboards cost in Marrakesh, right? But I'll guarantee you they're cheaper than back in the UK. So how the hell they figured out that we needed more money when we went to all these foreign places, I have no idea. I'm not complaining. I'm definitely not complaining. But it remains a mystery to me to this very day. Except, well, perhaps, and this is just pure speculation on my behalf, but maybe it had something to do with the fact that all of the diplomatic staff in all of these British embassies, scattered throughout the world, they also got paid LOA. And so perhaps it really shouldn't come as any surprise that all of these British embassies are reporting back to the UK, oh wow, things are really expensive here. We definitely need more money. Bless you, British Diplomatic Service. A grateful Navy salutes you. Hey, I don't know, like I said, just speculation on my behalf, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if that had something to do with it. Anyway, what's up? What's next? Not a lot, I mean, aside from all of that, it's been a fairly uneventful week. I've been doing a lot of World of Warships this week. There's been a couple of mission marathons I've been trying to get completed. Well, which I actually have completed. There was one mission marathon for a brand new Soviet special 10-point captain, so I got that done. I have to say, I was looking at the bonuses that this guy actually gives to your ships, and he does seem kind of specifically tailored towards Soviet battleships, but I think there were only 2 Soviet battleships in the game, and they're both premiums. He doesn't look like he's going to be that useful on a cruiser, and certainly not useful on a destroyer. But then I realised, oh, hang on a minute, we are talking about Russian cruisers here, the battleship Moskva. Yeah, okay. Oh, and also the Stalingrad, of course. That got delivered to my account for testing. The super testers have been having fun with that, as well as the community contributors. Brand new premium tier 10 Soviet cruiser. Bullshit. It's a battleship. Don't believe what it says on the tin. That thing is a tier 10 battleship with cruiser matchmaking. Simple as that. So, yeah, actually, yes, that is all really starting to make sense after all. I can see the point of the captain now. Also, the Twitch Prime camo for the USS Texas. I completed that mission marathon. It was a bit of a ball ache, but I did it. And I'm never going to use it. It's a bit of an eyesore. You have to rinse your eyes out with bleach after looking at it. And I've also got, well, your regular permanent premium camo for the Texas, and I've got the Stars and Stripes camo for the USS Texas, and I always dress the Texas in the Stars and Stripes. Not only that, the Twitch Prime camo has exactly the same bonuses as the regular permanent camo for the Texas and the Stars and Stripes camo for the Texas. So I went through the ball ache of playing the Texas to unlock this Twitch Prime camo just because I had to have it, even though I was playing in the full knowledge that I was never going to use the thing. Never. I put it on the ship once in the port just to see what it looked like. Thought, yeah, that looks shit. And put the Stars and Stripes camo straight back on the ship. But that's what I do. If there's a mission marathon for something that I don't have, I have to do it. Come on, hands up, everybody admit. Everybody else who would have done the same, even if you knew you were never going to use it. Because that's what we do, isn't it? That's how MMOs continue to make a profit. It's all of those MMO pack rat players who absolutely definitely have to get every achievement, they have to get every collectible, every mount, every cosmetic item, even if they're never going to use them. This is what keeps games companies afloat. People like me. And I'll bet a lot of you are the same. Go on, admit it. We're amongst friends here, you can be honest. You know it to be true. Anyway, we're going to finish off this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles with another email that I received from Katie Tank Girl and the continuing adventures of her 3-year-old idiot son, Lucas. Jingles, you can't call him an idiot. He is an idiot. In fact, that's pretty much true of all children. They're all just happy little idiots. And Lucas is no exception. For those of you who don't remember or who didn't hear it the first time around, Katie likes to play a lot of World of Tanks. And while she's playing, she tends to have my videos running in the background. And so Lucas has picked up on certain expressions. Lucas likes to lick windows. Lucas wants to be a window licker. Well, anyway, that was in the previous message that I got from Katie. I have since received another one. And it goes like this. Dear Gnome Overlord, thanks so much for blessing my son Lucas in episode 236 of Mingles with Jingles. Regrettably, your blessing him has not prevented further catastrophe. As you can imagine, being the owner of a 3-year-old doesn't leave me much time to game. Fortunately, Lucas is mad about trains. He has 5 train sets and will ride the kiddie train at the park all day if allowed to. Seriously, I've seen him choose the train over ice cream. It's just not right. A few days ago, he was really wrapped up in one of his train sets, and I got the idea that I could squeeze in a few rounds of World of Tanks while he was distracted. Things were going well, him on the floor, me on the laptop, until he happened to look up while I was on the Ensk map, and noticed that I was stuck in the middle of the train yard. Over he came with dozens of questions. Whose trains are those? Why were they there? Can he drive one? She was dueling with a T-67, and between trying to kick it to death and answer his questions, she drove straight into a boxcar. Oh, now I'd done it. Oh no, you broke the train. Is the train okay? Can you fix it? I could have said anything at that moment. I could have said, it's just a game, honey. I could have said, I'll explain in a minute. I could even have said, well, I finally understand the wisdom of daddies when they say they want blowjobs. Unfortunately, I'm a member of the slope-headed morons union here in the salt mines, and what I actually said was, it'll be fine in a minute, dear. Meaning, next time the map loads. Dutiful and trusting, Lucas sat down to see if the train would in fact be fine in a minute. Jingles, do you have any idea how long it takes for a particular map to load when your 3-year-old is waiting for assurance that you aren't willfully slaughtering trains? His short attention span might still have gotten me out of it, except every 3rd map in World of Tanks has a damn train on it. What was supposed to be a relaxing break for Mom became a lengthy analysis of mid-century European steam power. The whole thing came to a bloody crescendo when we loaded into the south end of Serene Coast and some asshole in an M4 Sherman started shooting up the fuel cars. This brought such a round of wailing about cruelty to small trains that there was no hope for it but to shut the game off and go do anything the fuck else. Jingles, will you read this on an episode of Mingles with Jingles and say, fuck my life? Because if there's anyone whose life is fucked, it's us slope-headed morons. Yours, Katie Tank Girl, from someplace in Kansas that I still can't pronounce the name of, despite everybody pointing it out last time. I'll have a go. Topeka, Topeka, I haven't got a clue. There are at least 4 different ways that could be pronounced, but Katie, you're entirely welcome. Thanks for the message again. And Lucas, don't ever change. I mean, you keep licking those windows, kid. And on that bombshell, that is it for this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. I hope you've enjoyed it. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.